You're listening to Carrie Lutz's Financial Survival Network, where you get valuable information you just can't find anywhere else. To thrive in today's trying times, you need the Financial Survival Network, now more than ever. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and get your free newsletter and gift. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.
Welcome. You are listening to watching the Financial Survival Network. I'm Carrie Lutz. Well, here we are. We're in mid-October, and things look a little bleak. Inflation numbers coming in at 40-year plus record highs. Consumer sentiment in the dumper. And, well, the only good numbers have been the employment numbers. But as you know, those are all lagging indicators, and oftentimes you don't see employment affected by a recession till many months later. Well, hey, our good friend Eddie Yoon is on with us. You find him at eddiewoodgrow.com. That's EDDIE woodgrow.com. Eddie, welcome back. So what's your take on these disheartening numbers?
Yeah, Carrie, it's a little scary out there. One of the certainly, it does feel like there's like you have two batteries that are on the opposing charges or magnets trying to be pushed together, right? That you have these multifactorial things that are going on where the CPI inflation is not going down as much as people would like it to. Now, is that good or bad? As you said, a lot of it is lagging, and it's a little bit like medieval times of doctors saying, "Hey, if you want to feel better, put these leeches on you," right? Like we're basically causing inflation to fight inflation by raising interest rates and mortgage and rents and everything else there. So that's going to be problematic on the one hand. Now, on the other side, consumer sentiment, which is still, as you said, all-time lows, it is trending up. So the University of Michigan one did tick up in the last report, which is a good sign there. And then also the TSA numbers, people who are traveling, those numbers continue to go up as well. So in October 16th, we had that checkpoint was about 2.5 million travelers, which is still trending upwards and back to not quite pre-COVID 2019 levels, but as early 2020, even before then, that's kind of what we're looking at. So the consumer is holding things up on that front. And the part that I think is interesting is I am actually wondering if we're missing the non-obvious explanation for what we're trying to solve for, right? Is that I was looking at some data, Carrie, about labor force participation, and which is at an all-time, not an all-time low, but low for in the last 50 some odd years. And when this is the central question: is why is unemployment is still low? If unemployment was higher, right, then the Fed might back off and say we're done raising rates, and maybe we can do that. But then I'm actually wondering if there's something just much simpler going on that explains basically the powers that be are reading tea leaves that I think and misinterpreting it as inflation is going up and therefore we have to raise rates. Whereas I think part of what's happening is the baby boomers are retiring, and that was just an artificial boom in labor participation for the last several decades. And that this is actually something that cannot be solved for at any given time. And so like the data that I'm looking at is, if you go back to the Great Depression, the number of children per woman was at about 2.2. And then the baby boomers happen, right, as you can imagine, and that number jumps up in this late 50s, 60s to 3.5. And then it's come back all the way down since the 1970s at 2, a little bit below 2, and it stayed flat there this whole time. And so what you have is, I don't know if you saw that there's a bunch of Kentucky Fried Chicken executives that are retiring. Did you see that?
No, I missed that.
Because of where rates are, their pensions get paid out at a much more favorable rate if they retire right now, right? Which is fast. And so they're dealing with all this senior executive turnover. And that my suspicion is what's actually happening is it's not that things are problematic in the near term. It's just that we had an unusually large workforce for about 3 generations or 3 decades. That pig in the python image, right? That boomers, they had 3.5 children per woman. Those people were entering the workforce, after, some years after that. And those people are now retiring and leaving. It's not that people aren't trying to work, or they're people that are just opting out of the workforce. It was just artificially large for the last 30 years. And now we're seeing, and we're paying the piper for it, because birth rates have not improved and immigration has not offset that. So I actually think we're solving for something very systemic with short-term solutions that's actually causing more pain in the near term.
Well, if you look at those numbers, though, labor force participation went up during a major bout of inflation, which sent many, many women into the workforce and necessitated the need for more income for families, because inflation was the hidden tax. Is that possibly what's going to happen now, Eddie?
Well, it's maybe, but then female participation in the workforce is still pretty high. It's actually, when I look at some of the numbers, it's female participation is at an all-time high. Can it go higher? Probably. And actually, if you look at other countries, where in Japan and some parts of Western Europe, where women are not having babies, they're not getting married in many cases. They're choosing to work, and these are all kind of temporarily good things in the sense that you have more workforce participation, GDP goes up. But when birth rates continue to be below replacement, the GDP is a big Ponzi scheme in the sense that you need more people coming after you today than you do in the past. And if that is not going to change, then that in my mind is what is systemically problematic here. And that the businesses that are going to do better, the businesses that you want to invest in, that you want to work for, are going to be ones that are what I'm describing, less volume sensitive, right? And more premium oriented. And so what I mean by that, Carrie, is that minivan sales will probably go down over time, because you just won't need that many people to be moved around in any one given place. Whereas the price per car has been going up because people like their freedom, they like their cars. And if you're not spending for other children and whatnot, then you're going to be willing to shell out a little bit more for something that you exactly want. College participation is declining. It's about 1 million to 2 million students fewer than it was 10 years ago. Same kind of deal. Is it that colleges, the ROI is not there, and education debt's really high? That's all true, but it's also the case that there are fewer people that want to go to college, and there are fewer people, period, as well too, that are college eligible to go. And so we have this kind of systemic set of problems that are out there, and that businesses that I think are predicated on so value or high volume, so the Walmarts of the world, will probably continue to struggle. Large homes that are designed for, you good old 2.5 kids and a dog and a car, all of that is going to be problematic going forward. The rise of the single person household has, I think, doubled or tripled in the last few decades. And that's kind of what the future looks like. You know what I mean? Like it's going to be, the entire economy is designed around the nuclear family. Those companies are going to really struggle versus the companies that are designed to serve single person households or 1 to 2 person households.
All right, I can see your point there, and I think it's certainly valid. And so the economy is changing, workplace changing, people's desire to work and higher education, all of this. None of those are good trends for the long-term health and viability of not just the U.S. economy, but the global economy, are they?
Don't just survive, thrive. The Financial Survival Network.
Goldterra Resource Corp is a gold exploration company that has assembled a highly prospective district-scale land position on the doorstep of the city of Yellowknife in Canada's Northwest Territories. Goldterra is currently focused on expanding and delineating gold resources at the company's Yellowknife City Gold Project, with a goal of discovering over 5 million ounces. With ready access to infrastructure and multiple high-grade gold discoveries, Goldterra is on track to re-establishing Yellowknife as one of the premier gold mining districts in Canada. Goldterra trades as YGT in Toronto and YGTFF on the OTC. For more information, go to goldterracorp.com. That's goldterracorp.com.
This is the Financial Survival Network, the information you need to thrive now more than ever.
Yes. I mean, it's not to say that it's Armageddon. It's just that the nature of how you plan your business has to change, right? So just as an example, there were 6 million single-person households in the U.S. in 1960. There's about 37 million today, right? Mm-hmm. And so how you design a business, it's less kind of, and you see this in a lot of different categories. Like, why has Keurig done really well? It's designed for single-person households, right? Single cup of coffee for one person, whereas the Bun coffee makers or Coffee Mate and whatnot, like those brewers have actually struggled quite a bit because, unless you plan to drink 10 cups of coffee per day, which maybe you are, or maybe other people do, right? There's no real reason to brew a whole pot of coffee anymore, right? And that shift, that unbundling of products I think it's a real harbinger of the companies that will do well in the economy to come versus the companies that are going to struggle, who are predicated on, I need large households to buy lots of stuff at really high volumes at really cheap prices so that I can achieve economies of scale. Like those types of things are not going to work out very well.
All right. So we are in the Keurig economy. I like that. I think it's emblematic and really gets the thought across. A lot more people single. Marriage rates are declining to all-time lows, and the number of people living on their own without a significant other is definitely at record highs. And maybe what we're seeing here, Eddie, is just really a demographic trend materializing, manifesting itself into the broader economic trends, because I guess if you're on your own, you don't have a family, you probably could quit earlier or work less or do gigs because you don't need income to support the kiddies and all their needs, which are super expensive. So maybe what's happening is all a question of demographics.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly, in my mind, there's an equal portion of this as a short-term cycle of, obviously the Russia-Ukraine war, near-term inflation with COVID and the aftermath of that. But there's a lot of things changing that have happened, obviously having a meaningful impact on the near-term economy. But I think as we're talking about, Kerry, there's a lot of systemic changes that have been decades in the works that I think we're now starting to feel the real pain and pressure points of, right?
All right. Well, so what are you supposed to do about it is the question here, Eddie. Like, how do you invest for this new world, and how do you live your life for this new world?
Well, I think the Warren Buffett model is the one I would watch out for, in the sense of the classic buy and hold legacy brand names. They're going to be around forever, like that. That assumption, I think, is a very dangerous one going forward. And so, probably the best shift that Buffett has made of, pushing money into Apple, with Tim Cook was the perfect CEO for him because he was very operationally minded and shareholder friendly guy there. But you look at the rest of their holdings, Bank of America, it's a legacy category designed for legacy households and, everything else. Some of the Kraft Heinz has been a disastrous holding for them. These are his whole premise of like, these are brands that have been around forever, therefore they will be around forever. I don't think that's true anymore. Coca-Cola, same kind of deal. Like Coca-Cola's, that company is trying very hard to pivot towards other types of beverages, but brown colas had been on a decline for many, many years. And sugar is the next tobacco. People are going to come after them hard for poisoning America with that, right? These are all things that are major risk factors. And so what you want to be looking out for are what I'm going to describe as kind of this companies that are creating categories for this new economy. right? It's there's a digital native version of Warren Buffett that is, you look at, Apple's probably the mainstay that can hold in both worlds there, but you're not looking at Bank of America, you're looking at Block. And it may not have to be crypto, but it's the PayPals of the world. It's the next generation ways of storing money and paying for things. It's we talked about the Keurig economy, right? It's not companies that move water around for a business model, right? That's expensive and not pleasant to do. I would much rather ship dry powder, K-cups and things of that nature, right? Where you're not, that is a much, much better way to run a business. And then similarly on that front, what are the food and beverage brands of the future as well too? And I think, again, it's going to be less predicated on, you get so much of these things, but a small quantity of very high premium things of organic and natural candy and chocolate on all-time highs from a growth perspective. And people still like their M&Ms and Reese's peanut butter cups, but there's a new generation of brands that are coming around that I think reflect the next generation of categories that people are going to want. And once they become better educated about these, they're going to shift en masse away from legacy brands designed for traditional nuclear family, 4-person plus households that are sold in conventional means. So
I would say is the Keurig economy then.
Yeah.
In many ways, many levels. Well, that's an interesting take. I know I live by myself and I've got a Keurig, but I drink a lot of coffee, so I have to make 2 cups at a time. It's really a pain, but I have no desire to go back to Mr. Coffee or Bun or whatever, where you dump a whole bag of grains in there, grounds, and then you have coffee for 2 weeks and you only drink half of it for the day. So that's the quandary when you want more than Keurig, but Keurig is all you can really find, or it's the most practical, then you got to make compromises, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Well, I think we've tortured that analogy enough. It is the headline of this interview, Eddie. Please tell us how to get in touch with you, how to connect with you on the web. I already said the website, but repeat that and tell us how else we can.
The website is eddiewoodgrow.com. You can reach out to me on Twitter at eddiewoodgrow. And then, I've always offered this, Carrie, to your listeners. Anyone who wants to read Category Pirates, it's a top 5 Substack for business out there on some of these latest thoughts, and reach out to me on eddie@eddiewoodgrow.net on email. Happy to give them a free week trial to see more of these provocative thoughts of like, hey, the world's changing and we better change with it. So
it's, since I've been alive, that has been the case. But what I really think, Eddie, is that the rate of change has accelerated dramatically with the rate of technological change. And the societal change is just struggling to keep up with the technology. And I guess that's where the cognitive dissonance comes in. That's where the issues of adaptation come in. All these things, we would like to go back to a world in the 50s where, the nuclear family, all these great things, but that's just not happening. Hey, really appreciate you coming by. We will definitely talk to you again in the not too distant future. And if you got a question for Eddie, shoot me an email, kl@kerrylutz.com, for Eddie or anything else that we do here on FSN. And while you're at the site, just go over there, click the subscribe button, get your free newsletter. Eddie, pleasure. Talk to you real soon.
Thanks, Carrie.
Thanks for listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, your solution to today's trying times. For the latest, go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.